Hello, it's time for another virtual Meet the Firms. I know we've got some new people and maybe some returners that just are like, hey, refresh my memory. So I'm gonna run through what the system is and how to use it, and hopefully it's gonna go really well when you are ready to rock and roll on January 28th. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of color surrounding why we host a virtual fair. I know this seems kind of back in like the COVID dark ages where we didn't have the option of gathering in person, but this is a silver lining of COVID where we felt like doing a virtual spring fair just works for us. We get better participation from professionals during busy season. It's a lot to ask somebody to take several hours to drive to Auburn, spend 2 hours at a fair, and then drive back wherever they're going. Most people live 2+ hours away that are coming to meet the firm. So this is really out of regard for our professionals' time. There is a shift in the recruiting timeline where we're seeing a lot of our juniors interview and accept offers during the fall semester of their junior year. So we have fewer candidates for this next internship, which would be spring 2026, that are on the scene. So now we're really starting to shepherd in the spring 27 group. And so that's a whole different ballgame right there. But because of the smaller candidate pool of the interns for the immediate term, it is just a lot more, makes a lot more sense to do it virtually. So because that is a heavy sophomore presence in this event, we feel like it's an easier entree into the recruiting process for them. It's premeditated. They know who they're supposed to meet with. They know how long they're going to have, versus walking into a 500-person in-person meet the firms is a lot more nerve-wracking. And we are better stewards of our financial resources with this because of the smaller candidate pool, the fewer candidates that are involved. We have the ability to save our money and spend it on other meaningful activities. And so this is a better use of resources. It teaches students how to interact in this virtual world, because we know that another part of COVID was virtual, meetings, and just teamwork is here to stay. And yes, we love being in person. We love seeing each other and being across the desk from them. But there's times that we're going to have a meeting on Zoom or Teams or whatever. And this is an important way to learn that you can still connect with someone. That doesn't replace the in-person aspect, but this is a great kind of training wheels for the hybrid world of business that we live in. So let's talk about Career Fair Plus, which is the platform that we use for this. We've used Career Fair Plus since 2020, and it's been great. And they continue to kind of roll out new features and enhance things, and we've been really happy. So hopefully you're going to find this to be very user-friendly. But they do have a mobile app available as well as a desktop app. And I prefer personally the desktop app just because I like being at a computer and seeing being able to utilize my two screens if I need to. But you do have the option of the mobile app. And that's actually really great for convenience if you're out and about and you just need to kind of scroll what's going on in your schedules. So all the information in your exhibitor profile is going to import from Handshake. This is not only your employer information, but things that are associated with your registration for Meet the Firms. So if that profile information, you might want to look at it in Handshake if you haven't looked at it in a while. I know sometimes that language can change about like number of offices or people, or just things that you want students to know. There are some supplemental questions that you were asked in the registration process. We have imported those. You will have a logo that comes over. I think it's actually a web crawler that kind of goes and finds a logo from a website and pulls it over. And there's some firms that it just always gets it wrong, and it'll find like your 50th anniversary logo that you created 5 years ago, and it'll pull that. And I tried to go through and capture all the ones that I know were wrong, but please just look at it and make sure that your logo looks as you expect it to look. And I can always change that for you very easily. And you can enhance your booth. You can email me with any updates to the text or the logo. You can even add a video intro. This presentation is going to be distributed, so you'll have the ability to click on this link and submit your video files if you want to have kind of that wow, like, hey, this is our elevator speech kind of thing, in addition to them reading about you. So that does have a restricted file type on that. So when you get access to Career Fair Plus, which all the team leads already have access, maybe you've already started adding team members, But you will receive an email for an initial account setup, or once you know you've been added as a team member, if you're a returner, you will use the same login credentials that you've always used. Chrome and Firefox are the preferred browsers. So if you use Microsoft Edge, sorry, we're going to have to use something else. The login page, if you are on a web-based setup, then you are going to go to app.careerfairplus.com, or like I said, there is a mobile app that you can use. And then there's a little thing that says employer login, and that is on the top right-hand corner. So that's where you will enter this is very important, the email address that's associated with your account. So sometimes I know that some firms will have a shared recruiter inbox, and they will want to create a profile for that. And that is what they will log in using to be able to set up their team versus their individual, named email address. So you will automatically see, if you are added to the event, you will automatically see Auburn's 2025 virtual Meet the Firms. You will also have the ability to look at past fairs if you are a returning user and you have those set up on your account, which is actually helpful if you want to just use historical information to set up this year's event. And you can edit your profile. That's something we really recommend, because students are going to feel a lot more comfortable booking on schedules where they know the face, and be able, to look at your LinkedIn profile and feel a little more familiar with you. But another plug for the app, it's really helpful to be able to use this, not only just for you to have it on the go, but for you to be able to see what a student might see, because a lot of them will be booking appointments on their phone. And so it might be helpful for you to see what a student sees from that perspective. So when you get into Career Fair Plus and you log in, you'll see the upcoming fairs, and you will actually click into that Spring 25 virtual Meet the Firms. But again, you have to be added to see it. So even if you're a returning Career Fair Plus user, you will want to make sure that your team lead has added your email address. So then you will see that on your homepage, because it is not automatic that just because you've been associated with the virtual Meet the Firms in the past that you can now see this new fair. It has to be intentional and you be added. So you'll see all the schedules that are on that full exhibitor, I guess. So not just yours, but yours are going to be prioritized in that list. So you'll see the date and time for the fair. That is a single date and a 4 to 8 p.m. Central Time frame. You do have the option to schedule to customize your schedule and interaction type. So let's say you don't want to use the Career Fair Plus kind of rooms that they provide, and you're more familiar with Teams, you will have the ability to do that. And I know a lot of people are a little more, they just like familiarity. So I'm not sitting here saying that you have to use the Career Fair Plus room, but I will show that to y'all soon. You'll see who the assigned recruiter is on the schedule, and there are some buttons on the schedule. The join meeting one is very important because we want everyone to test this before the event. That's where you're going to test your microphone, your video, your understanding of the kind of the lay of the land if you're in there. Again, this is if you use the integrated Career Fair Plus room. If you use your familiar platform like Teams or Zoom, there would not necessarily be as much of a need to do that if you're constantly using that daily. You can also add the meetings to your calendar. Let's say you know that you've got these bookings and you want to know specifically, like I've got this candidate at this time. You can add those meetings to your calendar. You can customize your schedule options. I'll show that in the next section. And you can also download student report. You can download all the candidates. You can download resumes on a schedule level. Those resumes will be hyperlinked if you just download them across all schedules for one employer. So let me just give you a little demonstration of, I know I kind of talked through everything quickly. So when we are on, and remember the app.careerfairplus.com website, and this is where I said, this is where we're going to log in. So you're going to enter that email address that you know is associated with your profile on Career Fair Plus. You're going to create a password or use the same password that you have always used. And then you'll log in. And for purposes of today's training, because our fair is not live, I have to use a virtual demo fair. So you're going to see this on my profile, but yours will actually say Auburn virtual Meet the Firms for January 28th. And this is where you could see that past fair, if that is applicable to your profile. And again, that's helpful to look back and say, oh, we have this many schedules. This is how many people booked on them just for planning for this year. That is always really nice. Caveat, if you are a new employer and you know, well, I'm new to my employer, but my employer has historically participated in virtual Meet the Firms, I can go back and get your information for you and export your schedule information. So that is something you'll just have to request from me, and I'm happy to provide. So let's click in. Just like I said, you have to click on the name of the fair, and then you'll see this blue bar at the top, create schedule, download interactions, invite another recruiter, edit my profile. This is where you can see your schedules that are assigned to you, as well as your team's schedules. So this is kind of, nice because everyone has that big picture view of what is happening for an entire employer, and it's not just my little piece of the pie. So it's easier to team with others. It's easier to share access. If you have a team member who is sick or, just has a client emergency, then you can easily share access to this platform. There's not even a login needed once the schedule is set up. So when we click through, and I'll show you in a little bit how to create a schedule, you can download all interactions. When we click that, that will go to an Excel document that you can see here. And then, like I said, the resumes are linked in those interactions, or in that Excel document. But if you want to generate a resume book, then you would click into individual schedules. So this is where, when you're inviting another recruiter, you can see, okay, here's everyone who's on the team, and you'll be able to see not only who is on the team, but maybe somebody who hasn't activated. So you can see right here, this Career Fair Plus team member just says invited. They have gotten the invitation to join Career Fair Plus, but haven't actually done anything with it. So that way you can remind them through the system, or you might just want to ping them at work and say, hey, just so you know, I need you to create your profile so I can make sure that students know who you are when they're booking with you. But you're just going to enter the email address for the person that you want to be associated with your booth. And it's as simple as that. And they will get that invitation email. Then you can edit your profile. And this is your personal profile. It is not your employer profile. I'll show you where to find that in a minute. But again, using the ability to upload a photo and having that LinkedIn profile is going to increase students' comfort level with booking with you, because they want to know, they crave that kind of planning ability to say, okay, I can do a little bit of homework on this person before my meeting with them on January 28th. So just make sure that you are populating that fully. And if you're interested in seeing what your booth looks like, then you can click on, it's actually below the blue bar area, but you can see View My Employer Booth here. You can see this is what a student would be seeing if they are logged into the web-based platform. And again, if you want to look at it from the app standpoint, then you can use the app and say, I'm a student and this is what I want to be able to, this is the perspective I want to use. So if we want to see, okay, this is what a student, okay, this is a good example because the Auburn one isn't very populated. It just has a website and no description. So you can see that that's not as helpful. Like if you're a student and you see like nothing, then that's a little more mysterious than you probably want to deal with. So something that might be a little more familiar or informative rather is something that has that overview, like what is this company or firm kind of thing. So that is really helpful, and we will get back to the presentation, but that's just kind of the overview of what you see when you log in, but you'll also see all of the information, what the booking window is, and I'll go into that, and my contact info, which I'm also going to share my cell phone number with y'all. Make sure that you know how to get in touch with me if you're having any crises, because I am here to help. So setting up your schedules is under that blue bar, and you're going to create a schedule. You're going to assign it to a team member. And if there's not a team member already added, you can add them there. You can download all your interactions, meaning everyone who has booked on your schedules. There is not a way to see all of the candidates who have joined the fair unless they are booked on one of your schedules. So when you create a schedule, you are going to customize certain aspects of it, and there's certain parts you won't customize. So you'll see name of the schedule, description, the duration is a preset 15 minutes. If you don't want 15 minutes and you think 10 is more appropriate, you can reduce it. I would not increase it because then we're getting more into like interview time frame, and we don't want this to feel like an interview. You can, again, like I said, you do not have to use the integrated Career Fair Plus video platform that is called Whereby. You can use your own interaction platform, which would probably be like a Teams or a Zoom. And the only time you would need to customize the preset, you're going to leave the day alone because that, Meet the Firms is a unified date. It is January 28th, and that's it. But if there's additional instructions, the only time this would be applicable probably to your schedule is if you are using that external platform where you would add the link to, hey, here's my Teams room that I want you to join. So your schedule availability is up to you. I can't emphasize this enough that 4 to 8 does not mean you are sitting in front of your computer from 4 to 8. 4 to 8 means you can meet with students during that time frame in whatever works. And for an individual person, I don't think that having 4 hours of meetings is really that practical. Of course, the students are going to do it, but they're the recruits. And for y'all, you might want to more closely mirror a 2-hour obligation, which is more typical of a in-person Meet the Firms, and just pick a couple of hours that you're available. Now, do you want to have overall availability from professionals for 4 to 8? Yes, you do want to be able to accommodate that because students will run into some issues with, and I'll talk about this later. There's an automatic 5-minute buffer for them in between appointment booking times. So that kind of naturally will shift how many meetings they are able to have in, say, a 2-hour time frame. So they may want to max out their 4 hours if they want to have 10 meetings and kind of figure out that puzzle piece of availability. So I do recommend that you have an overall availability among all your professionals and team members of that full 4 hours, but on an individual level, probably not. I think that's a lot to ask. So you can also toggle the appointment times to see your time zone. If you're in the Eastern time zone, this may be an easier way for you to think about it. Obviously, 4 p.m. our time is 5 p.m. your time, and that might better help you determine when you want to meet with students. You can also block times you don't want students to book. Let's say in the middle of this time frame, I have a really important client status meeting I have to be on, or I have a hard stop because I've got to get my kid to soccer practice, whatever. You can block your schedule and accommodate whatever availability works for you. But you do need to customize that availability by 7:59 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, January 21st, which is the day after MLK holiday. So the reason we want you to go ahead and customize your availability is because it's actually a little harder to change things once students start to book. You cannot cancel students directly. I have to do that for you. You can move students to a different schedule if there's the equivalent time available. But if a student's booked on your schedule for 4 p.m. and you're like, 4 p.m. doesn't want to work for me, or doesn't work for me, I need to move them to 5 p.m. on my colleague's schedule. You can't do that without emailing the student. So we just want to try to anticipate everything up front and make sure that we're heading off any issues. And you also want to make sure that you're going to update the duration of your schedule availability if you want more time than preset. Maybe, I don't know. I really think that 15 minutes is sufficient. Otherwise, it does start to feel longer, but this is your fair. So if you do want to do that, make sure that you know that that's on your end, that it is updated. There is an ability to pre-screen for some prerequisites on your schedule. I don't love this because there's, first of all, not a great way to screen for accountants. There's not as many filters as you would expect. And I think that business might be the most sophisticated way of weeding out who is booking on your schedule. But if you think about a real fair, you're not pre-screening students before they walk up to you. You're not saying, oh, what's your major? Even though we kind of do that for you at the in-person meet the firms, sometimes it's hard to know if there might be somebody who sneaks in that's a different major. One thing that might be wise to screen for is your work authorizations. If you know we cannot sponsor a visa, like that's not something that's in the cards, then you can go ahead and screen out those students that might require work authorization. There is an ability to add a question of, are you an accounting major, or do you have at least a 3.0 GPA? I don't know. You can add questions that they have to answer yes to proceed with booking on the schedule. But again, I don't love the pre-screening questions. I think that it can actually hurt you. And then, it's 15 minutes where you're networking. So I would just let as many students that want to talk to you. And you should name your schedules according to the interests of the candidates who should book on that schedule. So what I mean by that is this an audit or a tax person? Is this a schedule meant for somebody who wants to go to what I would refer to as a referral city? Maybe you want to go to New York or you want to go to Chicago. Like, this is somebody that can talk to you about that. Kind of give a purpose to your schedules and name them so students know what they might encounter if they're booking on that schedule. But avoid being too prescriptive. We don't want to get too granular because then you may not have very many bookings on that schedule. Definitely do not call your meetings any interviews. And there is a description field where you can add more information about, like, encouraging students, like, no matter where you are in the recruiting process, come book with us. And I kind of just put a little blurb there, but you can get creative. You can say, book with me if you have no idea what you want to do, and we can talk about both sides, or whatever. Because remember, these are sophomores, and I think sometimes they don't really know between audit and tax, and so sometimes that's a hard choice for them to say, okay, I'm going to book with an audit professional, and that's what I want, because I'm brand new. I'm in principles right now. So include the time frame that schedule is available if it's not for the full event duration. So let's say that schedule is only free from 5 to 6, then you might want to put that in the schedule title just to make it abundantly clear when somebody clicks into it. They're not going to be able to book a 7 p.m. appointment. And make sure that schedule is assigned to someone. No one's going to book on it if it's not. And that is something I've definitely seen in the past, where employers think that someone's joined, or they think that, oh, I'm gonna just create the schedule and assign it to somebody later, and they forget. And then once the booking window opens, it's just mysterious, the students, and they're not very likely to book on that. So if you have a desire to have multiple recruiters in the room, you can. However, I would make sure that whoever's face is on that schedule is always in that room, because students might be very intentionally trying to book with that person. And that would be kind of a surprise to say, oh, I'm going to be meeting with Bob. That's who I booked with. And then they get into the room and Bob is nowhere to be found. And of course, things come up and emergencies happen, but that's just my kind of general guidance, that Bob should be the consistent face, and he can bring in younger staff or whoever he wants to join with him during his time frame, but Bob should be on that schedule all the time. I would also recommend one recruiter set up all the schedules, just to make sure they're consistently named, that everything's we've covered all our bases. If we are a multi-location firm, we've covered all those locations, and we're not just trusting all these things to get created here and there. And then big picture, oh, we're missing a really significant location or service area represented, so forth. And your schedule options button, again, we will have a demonstration on this, but you will have the ability to share room access. Let's say Bob wants to bring in a younger staff to help him, or let's say Bob has a client emergency and he's like, I got to bail, I need somebody else to be in this meeting. He can share that without having that recruiter logged into the system. So managed schedules would involve editing the schedule details. Let's say you subsequently decide to make your description a little more flowery or fun. You have ChatGPT help you with that. You edit your time slots. Oh gosh, I forgot. I told my spouse that I was going to go to this event after 5 o'clock. So I'm only available 4 to 5, and now I've got to block everything. And you can actually delete a schedule. You can't delete a schedule if it has students on it. You have to move the students off of it before you can delete it. But you can delete the schedule if you create one and you're like, oh, that's not actually what I wanted. And it's just kind of a orphan schedule that's kind of cluttering your booth. There is something called group rooms, and those can be created if you want to have somebody sitting in a room for 4 hours essentially, or for whatever duration you set. And that's more for pop-ins, and those are they're not scheduled interactions. They do have to be monitored. There's no like knocking on those, and you'll see when I do the demonstration what knocking is. But there is no appointment time, so you have to just be ready for a student to come in at any given time. These are historically not very utilized. So I think we had 2 employers last year that used them, where the recruiter was in there, and maybe after every appointment, students were directed like, hey, go pop in there and just meet our recruiter, just so you have a familiar face. They can answer any questions you have that are kind of logistical in nature. Oh, where do I apply for this? The recruiter can handle that. Just know that those are an option, and they have their limitations because they're just wide open. So that's why I say they're meant for pop-ins, and you do have to set those as the type upon creation. So you can't subsequently change a one-to-one meeting room to a group room. You have to create that at inception as a group room. Okay, so let's just look at this now. We're going to go back to that area of the bar that says create a schedule. This is where I can see all of my existing team members. I can also add a new recruiter, or I can say, I don't have a recruiter for this. I don't know who's going to do it, but caution on that one because we don't want to forget. And remember, when the booking window opens, if there's nobody on that, students may not book. So I'm just going to create one for myself. I've already selected myself on that radio button. This is where, remember, if you want to use a group room, you have to create that from the get-go, but I'm going to just do a one-on-one here, and this is the recommended format. This is where we're going to name our schedule. So let's say Atlanta advisory. And I think there is an appetite for students to meet some advisory people. I wouldn't create a ton of advisory schedules, maybe one if that's something that you offer, but let's just kind of go with that. And this is where we can say, let's say, what is advisory? Meet with Colby to find out more and hear about our internship opportunities. All ages of accounting students are welcome. I think sometimes that's helpful for a sophomore to know, like, okay, I am meeting with a partner. Do I have any business meeting with a partner? I'm in my second year. I don't know. Just kind of helps them know, yep, you're in the right place. Like, we want to see you too. Schedule date is fixed. You do not need to change that. You will have the option of saying video room or external link. We are not using in person for this fair. We are not going to use phone call. That's not very engaging. So your options really are between Career Plus, video room, and external link. And if you do the external link, this is where you are going to add in the additional instructions, the link that they need to click on to join. But if you are just going to go with the default Career Plus room, then that is going to automatically populate additional instructions saying this is how you access that meeting. So we can also look at our schedule times. We can change our time slot duration. We can say this is, it's going to be in my time zone. It's going to be in the fair's time zone, however you want to think about it. But your schedule, you can say, okay, I only want my schedule to even show time slots from 4 to 6, but then I know that there's a certain time frame in that I'm going to have to block for a break or whatever. So you're going to click these radio buttons if you want to add in any breaks. And then, obviously it would only be offering times that you that you specify are the times that you're available to meet with students. So this is then going to go to the prerequisites. this is where I caution you on using these. You can click and see what the options are. I don't, but basket weaving. I mean, like, for real, like, is that actually a major? So, work authorizations is really the one that I would recommend if that's something that's important to you. Additional prerequisites, you can say must be an accounting major or anything that you know, okay, you must have a 3.0. Like if you want to advertise something else, then that's okay. So let's just select authorized to work in the United States for this one. So then it's going to give you a preview of here's everything that you've populated, and then you can publish it. So I'm not going to publish another schedule because I already published one, but it does give you a preview before you commit. So back to the presentation. If you are wondering how to access your candidate info, you will start seeing candidate info populate after that 8 a.m. Central Time booking window opens on January 21st. So you're not going to have anything to really look at until students are eligible to start booking, and they can book all the way through the end of the fair, which is because maybe there's a situation where you meet with somebody and you're like, oh, I really want you to meet with my colleague. It looks like they have some time slots open. I'm going to have them unblock those, and you can book on those time slots to be able to meet with someone else. So we tell students, don't preemptively book with multiple people in a virtual fair situation, just because it is a resource suck. But we do encourage students to, if an employer says, no, we want to meet with you on this schedule, then to book additional appointments if the employer requests it. But you can kind of allow students to meet multiple people if you wanted to double up with people in a room. So if you want to kind of mirror some of those group conversations that tend to happen at a real, in-person meet the firms, you can say, oh, there's this main person in the room, but I'm going to have this other person just as kind of the wingman or wingwoman, and they're going to help make the conversation flow. Because we do have 15 minutes. Like, that is longer than maybe some of those career fair interactions. And you can tailor that to be less than 15 if you want. I think it is really fun and engaging then. So I'm going to send this out so you can see how appointments look to students. You can, you also saw where to look at how the students kind of perceive what that booth information looks like. You can use your app and you can switch roles to see what a candidate sees. But you have the ability, once you start booking, to download an Excel document of all of your bookings across all schedules. You can also, on each individual schedule, generate a resume book. That is only available on a schedule level. So once the booking window opens, it's really important to monitor your schedules for health. And what I mean by health is where you have a full schedule. Maybe your Birmingham audit is filling up fast and you need to add another schedule for Birmingham audit. Or maybe your Birmingham audit is suffering and you don't want to actually have the full 4 hours of that person sitting there. Then you can start to block some later times. So that person's only really meeting with students for 2 hours. So they're not like, okay, I've got students from 4 to 5, and then I have some students from 7 to 8. Like that could be a little harder for somebody to just spend their entire evening tethered to their computer, even though they'd have some downtime in between. If you are hoping to see students that have joined the fair and be able to message them on the app, that is not possible. The only students that you can message and see their information is the students who have booked with you. So if you're looking for any other student information, you should be able to find out on Handshake. Any of our Beta Psi and RAP students are supposed to have public profiles, and you can search using the list that you received for any students that you might want to recruit to book appointments with you. So just to show you that again, when you are in the blue bar, that's where the download interactions is. I did kind of show you the schedules and how that gets downloaded. I'll show you what it looks like once it is downloaded. and you can see all the information, and that resume is actually hyperlinked to a storage website where you can download it from there. But it's really nice because you have, I mean, this is your pipeline. Like you may not have this luxury in a real in-person meet the firms, but this is possible here. And then on the schedule level, and let's just look at my Huntsville schedule that I created. So you'll see that there's a download all resumes or CVs, and that is going to be a zip file. And that's where you can see those individual files. So that's pretty nice because especially from the recruiter standpoint, like you have such a nice ability to see everything. So I highly recommend just kind of playing around with it once you start getting your bookings to make sure that you understand how to access those. So go back to my presentation, and we have an integrated video room called Whereby that is offered by Career Fair Plus, and I'm going to just show it to you. There are several settings inside of it that can kind of help customize it to your desires. And there is a chat function that if you have a technology fail and you need to message the student, then you can do that. You can also see a preview of what the candidate looks like before they actually enter the room. And one thing that is currently not possible is for the students to see anything but your LinkedIn information. It kind of protects your personal contact info, where students can only see, okay, this is how you connect with this person on LinkedIn. So if you want them to have your email or your cell phone number, you will need to message that to the student and have them write it down or screenshot it or whatever. So that helps them with their follow-up. So just remember, provide your contact info to the students during these meetings. All right, so let's take a look at what that web meeting might look like. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn off my video, and then I'm gonna join the meeting. Here I am. Okay, so in here you can see all these different settings. Note that you do have the background effects, and you can do the blur, you can have a cabin if that is your jam, and emojis, that's the chat. There's a chat timer. So when you're testing this, this is when I would click around, just familiarize yourself if you're going to use this platform. So when we have a student joining, this is, I'm gonna have to like mute my stuff. Okay, now we're in business. So I'm going to you can see when I knock, it hovers over. That is a horrible picture. So I'm going to let this girl in. There might be an echo. Yeah, there's a little bit of an echo. So you can see what it looks like. All right, so that's the Whereby. I'm gonna leave the room, come back to you on video. That's me. There's not. Here we are. All right, so the app is really helpful if you are on the go It is not a must-have, but you can also, you know, if you wanted to have the app on an iPad and use that in front of you while you're taking the call from your computer, then that's helpful. There is a rating system. You also have the rating system on the, and I'll show you on the individual student there. You'll see this in the app as well. So next step, no show, rate candidate, and you can see their resume. So what's next? The day of, I will be available via cell phone. If you have any need to troubleshoot or just talk through things, I will provide this in an email. There is a support button on the Career Fair Plus website. If you are advanced testing your software and familiarizing yourself with Whereby and just trying to get ahead of this, because there's nothing that's restricted for you to like just kind of see how it works. Like now, students obviously won't know to log in with you until the time that they're booked on your schedule, but any advanced testing does tend to head this off. So I recommend if there's any technical issues, go to support@careerfairplus.com or email them, or there's a little chat icon in the website. So if worst comes to worst, then you are going to go to the old school telephone way of interacting with students, and you'll just use the resume phone number and call them. So next steps, if you're the lead, create your schedules. We are not saying you have to have a certain number. You should just consider how many students you really need to meet with, consider last year, consider the variety of opportunities you have. You know, I'm here to help if you need that historical context of how many students you had on your schedules. I think it's always better to create what you think you need, kind of minimum, and then add if things get popular, or start blocking times so you don't have people that are sitting there for 4 hours. So before that booking window opens on the 21st of January, you're going to tell your team to create their profile, access their schedules, customize whatever availability they need, making sure that the team lead is in the loop, test the video room, and just make sure during that scheduling window, which lasts a week, that you're monitoring what's going on with your schedules. Are they overperforming? Are they underperforming? What do you need to do? I'm happy to kind of consult, but I don't want anybody sitting there just not meeting with students. So if you see like, oh, I have this schedule I had available from 4 to 8, and I only have students from 5 to 6, like block the rest of it when the on the event day, so you know, hey, I'm meeting with students from 5 to 6, that's great, but I'm not sitting here for 4 hours hoping that somebody's going to book with me. So I don't think you're going to have any walk-ups, so to speak, unless they're directed by another schedule. Like if they met with Bob and Bob was like, oh, you have to meet with Tracy, then, you know, maybe Tracy can be available and on call for that kind of situation. You'll get new pipelines, VAP and RAP lists on the 21st to promote your exhibitor booth, making sure that students know to book with you, making sure students know about your opportunities. They do need encouragement. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of, you know, people in their ears. And I'm always surprised by how a lot of employers don't use the lists. And so I recommend trying to do a little marketing for the event. So if you have any questions, let me know. There's also a Meet the Firms page on the BAP website. This is a great event. We're excited to have you. And if you're curious about where any of that information comes from on Handshake, this is just kind of an overview of what imports from Handshake in case you want to go and change the source. But I am totally happy to change anything you see on your profile. This is just kind of a longer term fix. If you change your Handshake profile, it should import over as that in the future. So that's all. Thank y'all so much.